Ballers, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we have Ricky, who got top 4 with Lord Slug at the Core TCG Online tournament. Ricky, how's it going?
It's going great, man.
Awesome, glad to hear it. So, first things first, man. Lord Slug, I think green is really good. I think green's a lot better than people give it credit for this format. Some people, will tell you it's stupidly, absurdly broken, but it hasn't been performing too well. So, let me ask you this. Why did you want to play Slug out of any green deck you could have played?
All right, well, one thing to start off with, clearly it was a webcam event, so you have to use cards you own IRL.
Right.
So it was probably one of my higher rarity decks, but also Lord Slug, I've been playing it since set 6 when it got its buff with the AOD Slug. And it just, for me, the whole engine and everything just felt so good. It felt good. It just needed more support. So when Draftbox Rebrands came out and then the Draw Monkeys came out, and now with Unisons finally covering the defense that Slug lacks, it felt a lot better.
Very cool. So you would say that this kind of ranks up in comparison to maybe Dredge Goku, I guess that being the top dog green deck of the format. Would you say this ranks up pretty well?
I would say it does well. Yeah, you just need to know how to handle the matchups. That's one thing that I had to really figure out every time, because I've been practicing with Slug since Surge format. So I've had a lot of time to figure out the matchups and all the other stuff and the certain plays to make against certain decks.
Very cool. So let's get on into the deck list. So we have a pretty wide Unison lineup. We have 4 Demigra, 2 Bardock, and 1 Vegeta. So normally you see this flip-flop. Normally people will play 4 Bardock and then 2 to 3 Demigra and then maybe 1 or 2 Vegeta. So talk about this ratio. Why so much Demigra and why less of the other Unisons?
Yeah, the Demigra was a 4-of because, like I mentioned earlier, Slug, one of his biggest weaknesses is that he's kind of frail. So you want to get Dormant and the Charismatic Villain live as early as possible. And with both of those, to get them out for free, you need your Unison at least 2 markers or above, and Demigra can get that perfectly. On top of that, Demigra, if they attack him, he has his own built-in little defense where you can strike life instead, which gets you to the flip side of Slug, which is pretty good. His flip side is where he shines a lot, in my opinion.
Gotcha.
And then the Bardock Parental Unison was for the Vegex matchup, because a lot of the people I was playing against playing Vegex kept forgetting about Bardock's auto, so I would be able to rip out their abilities.
Gotcha. And then how was the board wipe on the Vegeta Unison? Was that relevant in any certain matchups?
Yeah, I think the one matchup where I used it probably the worst was my final matchup against Kidku. Had I held it for another turn, I think I could have wiped an entire board full of skilllesses.
Oh, okay.
But I believe in one of the other matchups, who was it? I think it was against another Vegex where I wiped the board. I ended up wiping the board by dropping him and discarding, I believe, a Rebrian or a Draw Monkey.
Oh, gotcha. That's pretty good value. Yeah, you pitch those to the drop area, and then you just immediately gain value off of them. So that's obviously really good. So seems good. We'll move along to the Slug engine itself. So Wings, the morale booster. This is one of the later pieces of support that Slug got in set 6. So do you hard mulligan for this card turn 1?
It genuinely depends on the matchup, because there are certain matchups that have easy removal for it, like the Invoker matchup. They will a lot of them recently have been running the Arrival Cooler.
Right.
So they have easily removal for little Wings here. Then what other removal do people run? I know some people in yellow have been running the Gohan and Videl power couple, where they pay 1, pitch it, they draw 1, and then they blow up a small 1-drop with barrier. So they just blow up Wings.
Gotcha. So some matchups it's not so great, but maybe against blue it'll stick a little bit easier because blue doesn't really have a whole ton of barrier removal, right?
Yeah, it's great in the blue matchup for turn 1, and the great plays you can make: turn 1, drop him; turn 2, Bardock Unison, or sometimes the Demigra is all you really need.
Right. So that allowed you to play your Lord Slug Young again and bring out various Slug army from the drop area. It's probably going to be one that we'll see on the next slide. But so when you're playing Slug, I mean, you have your own hand control engine. You don't have to play like Dredge Goku, where they play Maiden Transformation, bring out 2 Rabonras. So you have kind of your own hand control engine, which is Lord Slug Young again, Lord Slug Agent of Destruction, and then you have Adonic Warrior Angela. So how did this hand control engine kind of work out for you in this tournament when you compare it to something like maybe like Judge Goku with Maidens, or even just like paying 2 for rebrand? Because I think Adonic Warrior Angela is really good with the crit and the ability to swing and make them pitch a card as well. So how did it perform for you all weekend?
The engine was great. It honestly helped a lot because the Andronic Warrior Angela, a lot of people tend to focus hard on that card and try to kill it, and they end up wasting more cards than what I would get from having Angela on board. And then when they do waste all those cards, I can just Lord Slug Young again it back onto the board, and they basically wasted all those cards for nothing basically.
Right. So what are the main plays? Why don't you walk us through it? Because I'm sure a lot of people don't really play Slug too much, but I think a lot of people will be interested in how it works. So why don't you walk us through the main play? Like, how do you combo with like Lord Slug, the Agent of Destruction, and Adonic Warrior and Gila? Walk us through that a little bit.
All right, so with the deck, really, the way I played it was a lot more mid-range. We try to lower our opponent's hand size, not try to aggro them too much. The only times we really aggro is when we're going with crit hits. You don't really want to go with the 20Ks that often, unless you have a way to rip the card that they're going to get from the life.
Right.
Anguilla, I believe once or twice was my turn 2 play right after dropping Wings, because it's able to get, like, at that point, they maybe have about 8 cards in hand. So you swing Anguilla, they drop 1, they go to 7, and then they have to combo. If they're on the front side, they have to combo 2 cards or a super combo and drop 1 to 2 more cards from hand.
Right.
It's all just more or less getting a feel for how much you need to lower your opponent to try to go for the kill turn, where you can go 20k, then the Anguilla, make them discard the card they get from the 20k swing, and then hit them with the crit, swing another 20, then leader, discard, and just sequence it. It's a lot of sequencing, I would say.
And then for most turn 3s, would you try and go for Young again into the Agent of Destruction, or would you try to combo it some other way?
So it really just depended on the matchups. Most of the time, yeah, I did try to go turn 3 into Young again. But there were some situations where it was kind of fine to just not play anything turn 3 and let my opponent decide to play and just try to punish them for wasting more cards from their hand.
Gotcha. Very cool. Yeah. So you have kind of options there. You know, playing you can, I guess. It seems like you can be very aggressive with Young again into the Agent, into Adonic Warrior, or you can kind of like sit back and respond to what your opponent's doing, right? So next thing I want to ask you about is the 1 Titanic Ambition. Was this card worth it as a 1-of, or do you wish you had more copies, or do you wish maybe you didn't play it, or was it just okay at 1?
It was okay at 1. I would say I mainly ran it to get to the secret rare faster, but it's in a weird spot for me, because in some builds I don't have it at all. In others, I always flash it as a 1-of, because in certain cases, ripping 3 is amazing.
Right.
Especially if they have like 4 cards in hand, you can then just Andonic Warrior and Gila and just rip the last one. In a lot of situations, it's good, but there's a lot of situations where paying 2 and discarding a card kind of hurts.
Right.
And it's just getting a feel for the matchup and getting a feel when to play it, really.
Gotcha. So it seems like a lot of what we're talking about here is really, really practicing with the deck, really knowing the matchup spread. That's really going to benefit you a lot if you're going to play this deck, huh?
Yeah, playing it a lot. Like, I played it a lot during Surge format, and I, for the PPG online tournaments, I was getting top 4 against Surge Piccolo and Surge Goku.
Very nice, very nice. So 2 Rebrand, 2 Goku, and 2 Masaroshi. This is kind of like our drop area synergies. So why only 2 Rebrand? Because usually green plays it at 4, but was 2 okay? Did you ever wish you had more copies?
2 was fine. I don't like... So one thing about Slug that I didn't mention earlier is you really need to know how to use his energy properly. So sometimes Rebrand feels bad, because rather than pay 2 for Rebrand, Lord Slug Young again is basically pay 2 and make them discard 2 as well, because you're dropping Young again into the 3-drop, which the 3-drop makes them discard 1.
Right.
And then you also drop Andronic Warrior and Gila, makes them discard another. So in some situations, that is genuinely better than Rebrand.
Yeah, that makes sense, because you're kind of doing the same thing, but you're also generating a board. So that does make a lot of sense there for sure. So moving on to the rest of the deck, 3 Sacrifice, 4 Dormant. This is our negate lineup. I know players that played Blue-Green Piccolo, they absolutely loved Sacrifice. Just being able to use it for free was really high value. Did you feel the same in Slug?
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember. In one of the Vegex matchups, I Dormanted, discard the Master Roshi, and then blocked with the Zuin blocker, and then would negate. That would basically be a negate for the first attack, and then I would sacrifice right after, and just negate their last attack. especially when they had Bibbidi in hand and then they just got their hand ripped apart, and then from there it just won game.
Right, like guarantees pretty much their turn's over. 2 negates, the first one being a dormant, second one being a sacrifice, their turn is pretty much over. So it doesn't actually matter if you take life with it or not, because they're not doing any more damage. So yeah, that's pretty solid.
Exactly.
And then the Paragus super combo. So obviously Paragus is an amazing super combo. Did you ever try the Android 18 super combo, or did you ever try the new green Vegeta super combo? And what are your thoughts on those in the deck?
The new green Vegeta super combo is good. I'm just not a big fan of it because you have to, like I said earlier, it's a lot of knowing how to use your energy properly.
Right.
And for me, the paying one to get the super combo on board and then get it blown up late game, just like the leader's also frail, it just didn't feel good playing it for me personally. And then the Paragus just helped me filter through my deck, see my pieces quicker that I need to see, because again, a lot of sequencing has to happen properly.
Right.
So Paragus helped me get all those. And then with the 18 super combos, which are the ones I used to run a while back, I stopped running them just because it felt bad in the Gohan reboot matchup, because in that situation I'm just losing cards, because at that point they've already comboed their entire hand, they're going for game, and it just felt bad wasting.
Yeah, Android 18 is not very good against all-ins. That's definitely the case for sure. All right, so next up, a few utility cards, only 2 charismatic villains. So I'm a fan of this card at 3 or 4. So why'd you only play 2?
I only played 2 because, I mean, to be honest, it might be good to run a 3 of instead of the rebrand, but there were a lot of situations where I was kind of like, I don't think I really need to remove their board too much, because they're going to be sacking it for combo, or they're going to be blocking with it, or they get a board but then they have no hand. So just for me, the trade-off wasn't that bad. Plus, getting rid of it to run a rebrand, because I was basically the third charismatic villain of the rebrand. Because for the Topo matchup, I get a play on their turn with the Frieza, but with rebrand, I can just wipe their entire board, set them back a few turns, and try to take out their Unison and make them have to get through my rebrand wall. And
was Topo a deck that you faced against a lot, or one that you like maybe tested against a lot?
I was told for the Top Cut there was quite a few Topos, but for this event I didn't run into a single one. So
yeah, I did hear about Topo at Top Cut for sure. Yeah, but I didn't think it would be too popular. But yeah, definitely a good meta call to run into.
Yeah.
So,
I just wanted to play it safe.
Yeah, for sure. And it's good. I mean, a 5-drop board wipe is definitely not a bad card, right? Just definitely an interesting call for sure. So then the one Bardock Awaken Instincts. So this is your one kind of just like mid-game Overwhelm. Did you ever wish you had more Overwhelms to go with? Because also too, like, you do actually want your drop area to a certain degree, right? So was this really just like going for game, digging for cards kind of thing?
Yeah, in the early game too, like if I'm going up against a really aggro deck and I'm just discarding my negates to stop them from hitting me, this was a fine pick, because I get an Overwhelm and then I get to set up my drop with like a Reeb or a Draw Monkey or one of the Slug or Anguillas into drop, so that way I can Yug again. Yeah,
very cool. That's definitely a solid pick for sure. And then finally, one Food Dark Banisher and one Cell Xeno. So kind of like 2 SCRs. Most players will play Fu Shrouded instead of Food Dark Banisher, but how did you feel about Banisher? Did it really just get the job done?
Yeah, so I believe on the Super Player stream they had me play against, they had the stream of me playing against Vegex, and the great thing about Fu is whenever the Vegex wants to use their Bibbidi combos or they want to use their Kai combos, they have to warp an additional card to get the extra power boost.
Right.
And then with the Bardock Unison, they warp a card and then you blow up their combo, so that way they wasted 2 cards and they didn't get anything out of it.
Right, they're losing cards at a pretty rapid rate there. And yeah, I do think green is pretty well positioned against Vegex for sure. So I do definitely like that. And then, you know, Cell Xeno is obviously Cell Xeno. So that's pretty much going to be a wrap for that one. So overall, that's the whole deck list. Congratulations on top 4 Slug. It's very, very cool to see that. Any final things you want to say about the deck, or any shout outs you want to get out there?
I would say if anyone wants to try Slug, I'd give it a shot. It's a really solid deck in this format, I feel. If you can figure out how to, really sequence well and figure out how to play the deck well enough. As for shoutouts, the Super Players Discord, I know they've been doing some fun tournaments over there. That's where I've been grinding. I've been grinding out over on Core TCG as well. Basically it.
Awesome, man. Ricky, thank you so much for sharing the deck with us, and we will see you next time.
All right. See ya.